Chosen one, listen closely. This moment was not randomly assigned to you by an algorithm. It was hand-carved by the hand of God. You are not here by mistake. You didn't stumble upon this message. Heaven arranged this moment to confront you with the truth. You weren't just chosen, you were built for this final mission. Every second leading up to this divine encounter has been preparing your spirit. This is not inspiration. This is activation. The war in the spirit is escalating. And while the world scrolls by in slumber, heaven is calling its hidden ones out of hiding. That's why you feel this unrest in your soul. That's why the distractions have lost their grip. You've been feeling the spiritual, shaking the inner warning that you were made for more than routines. Survival and silence. That's not ambition. That's the echo of your anointing, waking up. You don't fit in because you were never meant to. You were made for this. Heaven didn't just assign you, He designed you. God did not choose you after you were born. No, He formed you for this. Crafted in eternity, released into time, molded through trials, purified in rejection, shaped by pain. Also, you could carry a weight that others can't. See what others ignore, and rise when others break. That pressure you've been under lately, that wasn't an attack, it was preparation. Chosen one, listen again. There is a weight on your life that hell fears. That's why the warfare intensified. That's why you felt misunderstood, even in rooms filled with voices. That's why your heart has been heavy, but your mouth has stayed silent. Because you were in the incubation of destiny, God has been refining you quietly. While preparing to reveal you publicly, you haven't missed your moment. Your moment was waiting for your maturity. The timing of heaven is never early, never late. And right now, the Spirit of God is pushing your soul into position. You are not waking up by coincidence. You're waking up because your scroll in heaven has been unsealed. Your mission is not just about you. You are a domino in the hand of God. When you fall into alignment, generations behind you will be set free. Others are watching, waiting, depending on your obedience. This is not about fame. This is about fire. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. That fear you've wrestled with, it didn't come from heaven. The hesitation, the delay, the overthinking, it wasn't wisdom. It was warfare, and it ends today. Because when God calls, air keeps. When heaven moves, hell trembles. And when you rise, darkness retreats. There's something in you that refuses to quit. Something that even betrayal couldn't break. Even heartbreak couldn't silence. Even confusion couldn't kill. That something is your anointing. And now, God is saying, step out, speak up, move forward. Your light isn't supposed to be hidden anymore. You've been assigned to this exact generation for a reason. You're not crazy. You're called. You've spent years shrinking yourself, explaining your fire to people who only understand smoke. That ends now. The mission is too urgent, and your voice is too necessary. You've been wondering why doors closed, why relationships fell apart, why God seemed silent. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. He wasn't ignoring you, He was isolating you, because oil like yours can't be produced in crowded rooms. It's crushed in secret, and now Now comes the revealing. You're about to see why you had to wait, why the breaking was necessary, why you couldn't take the shortcuts others did. God wasn't punishing you. He was positioning you. Every no was His protection. Every delay was divine. And now, the signal has been sent. You are being summoned. So rise. Rise into your mantle. Rise into your mission. Rise into your kingdom posture. If this word pierced your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let someone else find their confirmation. Like this message. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because the Spirit of God is moving. And this is only the beginning of what heaven is about to reveal through you. Finally, comment 111 below as a prophetic act of alignment. 111. I say yes to my calling. I choose to walk in divine order. I am ready for the mission I was built for. You are not a mistake. You are not a product of randomness or survival. You are not here because life simply unfolded. You were sent, crafted with precision, released on divine timing. You are heaven's weapon. Long before your arrival, a war was declared. A war not fought with flesh and blood, but with principalities, patterns, and ancient darkness. And heaven didn't just choose you to be part of the resistance, it built you to be a breaker of chains, a disruptor of cycles, a destroyer of strongholds. The assignment on your life is not small, and that's why the warfare surrounding you hasn't been small either. You carry weight, not worldly status, but eternal substance. Hell doesn't fear your talent. It fears your alignment. Because when a chosen one steps into full agreement with heaven, all of hell's blueprints begin to unravel. That's what you're starting to feel. The restlessness, the holy discontent, the urge to rise, to build, to speak, to go. These are not passing moods. They are spiritual contractions, evidence that the mission inside of you is beginning to move. You are not just chosen to exist. You are chosen to intervene. The systems of this world were not built to contain someone like you. That's why you felt boxed in, misunderstood, undervalued. You've tried to fit into molds that weren't made for your dimensions. You've tried to shrink, to keep the peace. But the spirit inside you refuses to shrink, because it remembers what was spoken over you before time itself began. Heaven didn't ask permission to create you. Heaven sent you as a solution. You are not simply a believer, you are a force. And the more you surrender to the hands of God, the sharper you become. You were not called to survive among the average. You were built to tear down things in the spirit that others are too afraid to face. You weren't created to run from darkness, you were created to confront it. And yes, you've been through hell, but you didn't come out empty-handed. You came out with insight, scars that shine like armor, and fire in your lungs. What you've endured didn't disqualify you, it qualified you. The darkness that tried to drown you only refined you. The voices that rejected you only pushed you deeper into God. The silence that once felt suffocating has now become your sacred chamber of revelation. Can you feel it? That sense that your life is more than just the accumulation of days, that there's something in you the world hasn't seen yet. That urgency in your bones that won't go away. It's because you're not done. You're not finished. You haven't even truly begun to walk in the fullness of what God placed inside of you. This is not motivational fluff. This is a reminder of your spiritual architecture. You were formed to handle pressure most can't carry. Your shoulders were designed to carry legacy. not just survival. You were built with a different rhythm. Your spirit hears things in silence. Your heart breaks for what others ignore. You see beyond what's visible. And that's why people often don't understand you. But that's the point. Weapons aren't designed to be understood. They're designed to be effective. And that's what you are. Heaven's weapon doesn't look like the world expects. It may come wrapped in ordinary skin, in overlooked places, from rejected bloodlines. But that's how God operates. He hides glory in humility. He conceals power in stillness. He trains warriors in the wilderness, away from applause, so that when the hour strikes, they are not shaken by the noise. That hour is now striking over your life. This is not the end. This is the activation point. You've been walking toward this moment all along. The wrestle, the wait, the wondering, all of it has been preparation for your release. God didn't bring you this far to abandon you now. Heaven did not deposit vision in you just to mock your hunger. No. You are being called because you are ready, even if your mind still doubts it. What matters is not how you feel. What matters is who sent you. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 18, verse 34, He trains my hands. For battle, my arms can bend, a bow of bronze. You are heaven's weapon, forged in obscurity, while no one was watching, sharpened by sorrow that cut deep but couldn't destroy you, fired by the unshakable faith that grew in the dark when no light was present, tempered by time, refined through silence, hardened through loss, and now released by divine decree, anointed for impact, and sent to overturn what darkness thought was permanent. You've been through more than you let on. Most people see the surface. They see the smile, the strength, the survival, but they don't know the cost. They don't know the nights you cried into your pillow begging for answers. They don't know how many times you questioned if you were truly seen, truly known, truly chosen. And yet through every moment of pain, through every hidden scar, through every silent battle, you kept going. And that's what separates you. You didn't just endure, you overcame. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You were never meant to blend in, because your path was never supposed to be ordinary. Your warfare was intense because your calling is heavy. But now, something inside of you is stirring. Isn't it? Not just hope, not just desire, but a sense of divine readiness. You are stepping into the beginning of what you were truly made for. There's a reason you never fit in. A reason every time you tried to play small, something inside of you screamed, "This isn't it." You were designed by heaven to carry something that can't be explained with titles or trophies. You carry a presence, a power, a calling, and the moment you stop apologizing for your fire, everything around you shifts. You've tried to shrink to make others comfortable. You've dimmed your light to avoid confrontation. You've withheld your roar to maintain peace. But now the heavens are roaring back, because your silence has served its purpose, and the world needs your sound. The kingdom needs your obedience, and the Spirit is calling out of you what was placed there before time began. You can feel it. It's like fire in your bones. You can't go back to normal, because you've tasted too much of what's real. And this is what hell fears the most, an awakened, chosen one. You're not just spiritually gifted, you are spiritually dangerous. You carry a light that exposes darkness. You carry discernment that disrupts deception. You walk into rooms and shift atmospheres, not because you're loud, but because you're marked. You are what the enemy hoped would never rise. And you are rising. No more hiding. No more second-guessing. No more waiting for permission. The world doesn't need another watered-down echo. The world needs your raw, God-forged voice. You are not here to keep peace with darkness. You are here to break it. You are the interruption to every generational curse that thought it could linger. You are the wall between your bloodline and destruction. You are the turning point. And God has already placed everything you need inside of you. The enemy has tried everything to convince you otherwise. Through delay, confusion, betrayal, distraction, he tried to convince you to sit down and settle. But something in you wouldn't let go. That wasn't stubbornness. That was your spirit, remembering who you are. You were born to carry weight in the kingdom. You were built to handle battles no one else sees. You are not weak. You are wildly anointed. We find in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That strength isn't just for getting through hard days. That strength is for overthrowing systems. It's for crushing lies. It's for standing alone when no one claps. That strength is your portion. Not because you earned it, but because you were called to carry it. Let this truth hit your spirit hard. You don't need to become stronger. You just need to remember who you are. You were chosen. Not in a general, passive way, but in a specific, targeted, heaven-ordained way. You've been searched out, set apart, sealed, and sent. Every attack against you was actually confirmation. The greater the resistance, the greater the revelation that you were born to shift atmospheres. Not everyone will understand. They're not supposed to. But the ones assigned to your voice, they're waiting. And now I want you to make a declaration, not just with your heart, but with your voice. Speak it, type it, claim it, comment. I choose my crown. 3 simple words. But spiritually, it's a declaration of agreement. You are saying, I will no longer trade royalty for silence. I will no longer apologize for my mantle. I will no longer delay what God has already activated. No, your crown is not made of gold. It's made of obedience, of endurance, of surrender. And now, it's time to wear it. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, you were never an afterthought. Long before anyone else knew your name, heaven did. Before you were formed in your mother's womb, you were seen, known, and marked. Marked not just with love, but with purpose. You weren't just born, you were sent. You didn't just appear, you were assigned. And the weight of that assignment has been pressing on your soul from the very beginning, even when you didn't have the words to describe it. That quiet discomfort you've carried your whole life, the constant sense that you were made for more, that something is stirring just beneath the surface, that wasn't discontent, it was prophetic tension. A sign that your spirit remembers what your mind sometimes forgets. You were marked before you were born. While others played, you wrestled. While others fit in, you felt like a stranger in familiar places. You saw too much, felt too deeply, questioned too often, and maybe, at times, you thought something was wrong with you. But nothing was ever wrong with you. You were simply tuned to a frequency that others couldn't hear. Heaven has a language, and you've been hearing it since you were young. That ache in your chest when you see injustice, That fire that burns when truth is silenced. That unshakable knowing that you're supposed to do something bigger than what the world is offering. You didn't create that desire, it was implanted. God placed it there before you ever took your first breath. And the world has spent years trying to distract you from it. But destiny doesn't it just waits. And yours has been waiting for this moment. The moment you finally stop trying to be what others expect, and instead become who heaven designed. The moment you stop numbing yourself to be accepted, and instead choose to walk in divine clarity. The moment you realize that what set you apart wasn't rejection, it was redirection. You weren't meant to be popular. You were meant to be pure. You weren't created to entertain crowds. You were created to move realms. You weren't assigned to a platform, you were assigned to a calling. And whether the world claps or criticizes, your mission doesn't change. Because the one who called you is not man, it's God. It is written in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Law. That wasn't just for Jeremiah. That was for you. You may not hold a microphone. You may not stand behind a pulpit. But your life is a message. Your obedience is prophetic. Your walk is warfare. Every time you choose righteousness over compromise, heaven moves. Every time you say yes to the hard thing, the atmosphere shifts. Every time you stay silent in surrender, not fear God, breathes through you. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are remembering that you already were. And now, the things that once made you question your worth are becoming the very things that affirm your calling. The rejection was necessary. The isolation was part of the refining. The loneliness carved space in your soul where God now speaks with thunder. You were hidden, not because you were unworthy, but because the enemy couldn't handle your emergence. There are things God whispered over your life that hell overheard. That's why the warfare was intense. That's why the attacks came so early. That's why you were targeted while still in the womb, because your calling didn't start when you got saved. It started in the realm of eternity, when God said, "This one will carry fire." And now, you're waking up. The dreams are returning. The hunger is rising. The clarity is sharpening. And as the distractions fall away, you begin to see what you always knew deep down. You were marked. You were appointed. You were born for this. You are not here to wander. You are not here to blend in. You are here on assignment, and the heavens are now pulling you into position. So walk with fire in your lungs. Walk with the weight of heaven on your shoulders. Walk like someone who carries ancient oil in their veins. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to fit in. The ones who are meant to walk with you will recognize the fire, and the ones who don't were never part of the mission. You were marked before time began, and time is now catching up with what heaven already knows about you. This is not a drill. This is not one of those moments you brush off as just another message. No, this is sacred ground. You're standing in a divine intersection, and heaven is watching for your response. Not a reaction, a response. Because this is not a test of your feelings. It's a test of your readiness. Chosen one. You've sensed it for a while now. The pressure is rising. The urgency in your spirit has been growing. The weight of your assignment is no longer something you can ignore or silence. And deep down, you know, this isn't just a season you're going through. This is the hour you were built for. Everything is shifting. The lines are being drawn. and neutrality is no longer an option. You are standing in the tension between what was and what's about to be unleashed. The Spirit of God is drawing a line in the sand, and you've been summoned to step across it. There is no more time to delay. No more room to explain away the call on your life. No more waiting for a convenient moment. It won't get easier. It won't become clearer. Why? Because clarity comes after obedience, not before. This is not about inspiration. This is a moment of consecration. God is calling His remnant out of compromise and into commission. You were not saved just to be safe. You were not anointed just to be admired. You were chosen to confront darkness, to break cycles, to speak what others stay silent about, to carry fire where others carry fear. And that kind of assignment costs everything. This is why you've felt the shaking in your life, the divine disruption, the pull away from old circles, old habits, old mindsets, because where God is taking you, those things cannot follow. You are being unhooked from what was never meant to stay. That ache in your chest, that's purpose pressing against your comfort, that stirring in your spirit, that's your scroll being read aloud in the realm of heaven. This is not the time to look back. Scripture says in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 39, "But we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved." No, this is a call to rise, a call to remember who you are, a call to recognize that you were never meant to blend in. You were designed to stand out, not for attention, but for assignment. You were never meant to be comfortable. You were meant to be consecrated. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more voices, rooted in the authority of heaven. And that's you, the voice of the chosen, the one who carries oil forged through isolation, tears, and surrender. The one who knows what it costs to obey and chooses obedience anyway. But here's the truth. Obedience is never convenient, and destiny is never cheap. You've been waiting for confirmation, for signs, for reassurance. But this is your confirmation. This is your burning bush. This is your wake-up call. The heavens are sounding the alarm, and you are no longer allowed to play it safe in shallow waters. You were built for the deep. You were built for the final mission. And now, in this moment, I want to speak to your spirit, not your mind, not your fear, not your insecurity, but the real you, the one God spoke into existence before time began. You are ready, even if you don't feel like it, even if you still battle doubt, even if your knees are shaking. You are ready because heaven says so, because God does not call those who are already qualified. He qualifies those He has already called, and your calling is not pending. It's been activated. So now, take a moment. Let your soul catch up with your spirit. Let these words press into the deepest parts of you. And if something in you knows this is truth, not hype, not emotion, but divine timing, then don't keep it to yourself. If this spoke to you in the secret places, share it. You never know who else needs the same confirmation you just received. Like this message, not for vanity, but because it helps this word reach another warrior who's on the edge of obedience. And if you haven't yet subscribed, not for content, but for continuity, because this isn't a one-time word. It's a movement. It's a mantle. It's a mission. We're in this together, not as fans, not as followers, but as a family of fire bearers, rising for such a time as this. God didn't invite you. He commanded you. This isn't about feelings, convenience, or popularity. This is about obedience. When God releases a divine command, it carries with it the full weight of heaven's backing and the full resistance of hell's fury. That's why the moment you started to take your calling seriously, everything around you tried to break you. The warfare wasn't random, it was response. Because when heaven speaks over a life, hell listens too. And what was spoken over you? It wasn't soft. It wasn't vague. It was war language, authority, assignment, fire. You weren't called to be a cheerleader in the crowd. You were called to be a warrior on the front lines. Every season of your life up until now has been boot camp for the battlefield you were born to engage. You've heard it in your spirit over and over again. Move, speak, step. But doubt delayed you. Fear silenced you. And perfectionism tried to paralyze you. And still, God kept commanding, kept calling, kept confronting you with divine moments that disrupted your comfort. Because He didn't call you to sit. He called you to build. He called you to occupy, to plant, to pull down strongholds, to establish righteousness in places where compromise has become the culture. You were built to carry glory into dry places. You were anointed to walk into spaces others avoid and shift the atmosphere just by being obedient. And that's why the resistance has been so relentless, because your obedience is costly, not just to you, but to the kingdom of darkness. It is written in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." That wasn't just for Joshua, that was for you. You've spent enough time questioning if you're hearing God clearly. Enough time waiting for a sign. Enough time bargaining with fear. At some point, you have to stop waiting for permission and realize you were already commanded. You've spent enough time questioning if you're hearing God clearly. Enough time waiting for a sign. Enough time bargaining with fear. At some point, you have to stop waiting for permission and realize you were already commanded. And if God commanded it, that means He already equipped you for it. There are no missing pieces. The door won't open itself. The territory won't take itself. The enemy won't retreat unless you show up. You keep asking God to move, but heaven is waiting for you to move in the authority you've already been given. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But yes, it's worth it. You've been entrusted with something heavy because your spirit can carry what others collapse under. That doesn't make you better. It makes you responsible. The call isn't a crown, it's a command. And it's time to stop romanticizing the idea of being chosen and start realizing the weight of being sent. Because being sent means being stretched. It means being tested. It means going when no one affirms you. It means building when the ground looks barren. It means speaking when your voice shakes. It means showing up with authority, even when your confidence is still catching up. But obedience isn't about how you feel. It's about who sent you. You may not see the fruit yet, but your yes is already working. You may not hear applause, but your obedience is shaking gates in the spirit. You may not feel qualified, but God isn't calling your resume. He's calling your spirit, and your spirit is responding with a roar. No more delay. No more fear. No more waiting until you feel ready. Because when God commands, delay, becomes disobedience. And you weren't built to disobey, you were built to go. This is your go order. Heaven has drawn the line. You've crossed enough wilderness. You've spent enough time in hiding. Now, your time of release is here. And when heaven commands, all of creation aligns to make way for what was spoken. So type 444" the comments. Not because it's a ritual, not because it's magic, but because in the realm of the Spirit, that number is a prophetic symbol. 444, divine covering, angelic alignment. A reminder that you're not moving alone. Heaven is backing you. You're under supernatural protection. You're surrounded by hosts of heaven. You are not stepping forward into battle. You're stepping forward from victory. Every time you type that number, you're making this declaration. I receive the command. I trust the sender. I walk in full authority. This is the hour. This is the mission. And you are the one God chose and commanded. Hell knows your name, and that's exactly why it's been after you. You've been targeted. Not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. From the moment your spirit was released into the earth, darkness recognized a threat. Not a threat because of who you were on the outside, but because of what you carry on the inside. You were born with fire, with oil, with purpose. And hell has done everything it can to smother it before it burns down every system of bondage it built around you. The attacks weren't random. They were calculated from childhood. The enemy tried to distort your vision, tried to shut your mouth, tried to tangle your identity in rejection, comparison, addiction, shame. Why? Because even hell understands spiritual potential. Even demons know when a deliverer has been born. And make no mistake, you were born to deliver, to disrupt, and to dismantle. The resistance in your life hasn't been proof that you're off track. It's been proof that you're right in the middle of what you were called to change. If your life has felt like a battlefield, it's because your presence is a spiritual battering ram. Every step you take into alignment sends shockwaves through the enemy's structure. You weren't built to be liked by the darkness. You were built to intimidate it. And that's exactly what your life does, even in seasons when you feel uncertain, unseen, or unqualified. Because spiritual authority doesn't always feel like earthly confidence. Sometimes it looks like showing up when you feel exhausted. Sometimes it sounds like whispering a prayer when your voice is shaking. Sometimes it means standing alone. Even when everything in you wants to run, that's authority, and hell can't stand it. Hell knows your name, because heaven sealed it. Your name is not just recorded in earthly systems. It's written in the Lamb's Book of Life. It was spoken in the throne room before it ever echoed on earth. That name carries weight in the spirit. Your name is spoken with reverence in heaven and with resistance in hell. And every time you obey, your name causes tremors in regions you can't even see. Demons know when you wake up. They know when your feet hit the ground with purpose. They know when your worship isn't performance, but warfare. They know when your obedience is costing you something. That's when they panic. Because hell doesn't care about Christians who live casual, compromised lives. Hell worries about those who remember who they are and walk in it without apology. It was proclaimed in the book of Acts, chapter 19. Verse 15, Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are you? That verse wasn't just a moment of rebuke, it was a spiritual reality. Hell recognizes the names of those who walk in kingdom power, not those who talk loudly, but those who move in quiet authority, not those who wear the title, but those who carry the presence. So here's the real question. Does hell know your name? Because if it does, it means you're dangerous. It means you're a problem. It means you're not just taking up space, you're taking territory. And territory takers always draw fire. But the fire isn't a sign to back off, it's a signal to press in. You've already been through what was meant to break you. You've walked through fire and come out carrying flame. The places that tried to bury you only rooted your obedience deeper. That's why your words now carry weight. That's why your silence feels heavy. That's why your steps shake the ground beneath you. Because you're no longer walking in guesswork, you're walking in God-ordained power. This is what the enemy fears. Not your volume, not your image, but your resolve. The quiet decision in your soul that you won't bow to culture. The firm stand you've taken in secret places. The refusal to shrink just to survive. That resolve is lethal to hell's plans and beautiful in heaven's sight. You weren't built to be a passive observer. You were built to be a spiritual threat. You were born with a name that shakes gates when spoken in prayer. You've been trained in the fire so that when others faint, you rise. You don't just wear armor. You are a weapon. And you don't need anyone's permission to be what heaven already confirmed. So, walk like hell knows your name, because it does. And not even its gates can prevail against who you are becoming. You weren't built like the rest, because you weren't built for what the rest were built for. From the start, your wiring has been different. You've noticed what others overlook. You've carried burdens no one assigned you but felt responsible anyway. You've sensed shifts in the atmosphere when the room seemed fine. You've picked up battles that didn't even belong to you and still carried them to victory. That's because you were built different. And more than that, you were built dangerous. You've always felt things deeper, carried more silently, and questioned what others accepted without a thought. That wasn't weakness. It was early evidence of spiritual authority. You weren't just sensitive. You were strategically aware. God wired you with an alert system others didn't have. Because your assignment required a watchman's spirit. You are not soft clay, easily molded by culture. You are tempered steel, forged in divine fire. The things that should have broken you, they couldn't. Because the hand of God didn't just rescue you from the fire, it met you inside the fire and refined you in it. You weren't pulled out prematurely. You were kept there until your edges were sharp enough to cut through the very darkness that tried to destroy you. You are dangerous not because you're reckless, but because you're righteously precise. You've been equipped with the kind of discernment that frustrates manipulation. You walk in a sensitivity that confuses those who rely on control. You can feel the warfare before it arrives. You don't just react, you sense. And that's no accident. You were built to be spiritually ahead of what others aren't even prepared for yet. You've been misunderstood because your spirit intimidates what's out of alignment. People have tried to tame your fire, to make you easier to digest. But you weren't sent to be digestible. You were sent to be disruptive, to unsettle what's become comfortable in compromise. You're not harsh. You're holy. You're not proud. You're postured. And the light you carry doesn't just illuminate, it exposes. That's why you've lost relationships. That's why doors have shut without explanation. That's why people have pulled away when you've gotten closer to your assignment. Because the deeper you walk into purpose, the more threatening you become to anything or anyone operating out of comfort or complacency. And your growth didn't ruin those relationships. Your fire revealed what they were built on. And still, you stayed soft-hearted. You stayed humble. You stayed hidden when it would have been easier to prove a point. That's what makes you truly dangerous, not your ability to speak, but your decision to remain surrendered, because nothing terrifies the enemy more than someone with real power who refuses to use it for themselves. You're not just dangerous because of your gifts. You're dangerous because of your obedience. Obedience isn't flashy. It doesn't get celebrated. It often looks like silence, waiting, forgiving, walking away, or building without applause. But in the spirit realm, obedience is nuclear. It's the kind of power that demolishes strongholds, breaks bloodline patterns, and rewrites generational futures. And this is where you live now, in a season where your decisions are not about today, but about tomorrows you'll never see. You've matured past instant results. You're not living for the next like, the next breakthrough, or the next affirmation. You are moving for kingdom, legacy. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you holy. It is written in the second book of Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 4. The weapons of our warfare are not the weapons of the world. Instead, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. That's what you carry. You walk in power that has nothing to do with what people see, and everything to do with what heaven authorized. When you pray, the spiritual climate changes. When you speak, chains start to loosen. When you move, angelic orders are released. You don't need to be seen to be significant. You were built to move in stealth authority. That's why your presence makes the enemy nervous, because you don't need a title to carry territory. You don't need a crowd to activate heaven. You shift things in rooms you're not even acknowledged in. Your very existence confronts darkness, and your silence carries weight. Most voices never will. So don't shrink. Don't apologize. Don't explain yourself to people who were never assigned to understand your assignment. You don't need their validation when you already have heaven's verdict. You are not a threat because you're trying to be. You are a threat because you were made to be. And that's not arrogance, that's alignment. So walk boldly, speak wisely, love fiercely, and stay dangerous. You thought the silence meant God forgot you, but the silence was strategy. He wasn't punishing you. He was positioning you. When God hides someone, it's never without purpose. He hides warriors before he releases them. He hides those carrying fire, not to suffocate it, but to protect it until the time is right. You weren't buried, you were planted. And in the hidden place, you were not losing momentum, you were gaining roots. You've walked through seasons where it felt like no one saw you. Your efforts unnoticed, your obedience unrewarded, your prayers seemingly unanswered. And it made you question, did I miss it? No, you didn't miss it. You were in the sacred tension between the promise and the platform, between the calling and the commissioning, and not 1 second of it was wasted. Heaven saw it all. Every time you chose righteousness when compromise was easier. Every time you stayed silent when you could have retaliated. Every time you gave, served, built, and prayed, even when you had nothing left. Heaven recorded it. Every moment of obedience stored in the archives of eternity. Because you were not being punished, you were being preserved. Some people rise quickly and fall quicker. But you've been formed in the fire. You've been tested in the quiet. You've learned to hear God's whisper in the noise of your own doubt. That makes you dangerous. Because when the spotlight comes, it won't distract you. When the doors open, they won't change you. Because your roots weren't grown in applause, they were grown in isolation. Scripture says, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 3, I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord, who summons you by name. There's treasure in the silence, because in the silence, God taught you how to move in stillness, how to depend on His presence, not performance, how to follow whispers instead of chasing noise. You were hidden to learn how to see without being seen. And now, you're not rising as someone who wants the stage. You're rising as someone who carries the weight of glory. You were the answer long before anyone asked the question. God has a pattern throughout Scripture. He hides His greatest weapons. Joseph was hidden in a prison. Moses was hidden in the wilderness. David was hidden in the fields. Jesus was hidden in Nazareth. And you were hidden in plain sight, covered not to be forgotten, but to be forged. And now, the season of unveiling is drawing near. You've been wondering why doors seemed locked, why opportunities passed, why others were elevated while you stayed in the same place. It's because heaven wasn't preparing you for visibility, it was preparing you for impact. And impact is weighty. Impact requires depth. Impact requires people who don't fall apart when things don't go their way. You are one of those people. You've learned to walk with God when He was silent. You've learned to carry oil without needing to be seen. You've learned that the secret place is not a punishment, it's a privilege. And because of that, when the call comes, you won't just respond with excitement, you'll respond with reverence. The silence made you a storm, not loud, not chaotic, but steady, controlled, dangerous to darkness. You don't need to announce your arrival. Your very presence is a sign that the atmosphere has shifted. That's the kind of power heaven produces in the hidden place. So don't resent the silence. Don't regret the hiddenness. Don't rush what God is still refining. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're becoming exactly what the mission requires. And now, I want you to declare something simple yet powerful. Comment, I hear you. 3 words. A declaration. A posture. A spiritual signal that you're listening again. That even in the silence, your ears are open. That your heart is tender. That you are ready to respond. You don't need the full map to say yes. You just need to recognize the voice of the one who sends. So say it. Write it. Mean it. I hear you. End of. Not just with your ears, but with your life, your time, your focus, your surrender. Because when heaven knows you're listening, it starts speaking with power. And you were never waiting on God. He was waiting for this moment, your response. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore. There's a reason your warfare feels heavier. A reason your battles have intensified. It's because your life is not just about you. You've been entrusted with something far bigger than personal breakthrough. You are carrying a mantle that affects generations, and that kind of weight doesn't come without resistance. You are the bridge. You are the one heaven chose to break what has run through your family for decades. The one to stop what destroyed your parents. The one to heal what wounded your bloodline. The one to build what was never built. Protect what was never protected. And say, no more, when everyone else settled. That's why your life has been so difficult. It's been preparation for legacy. You are standing in the gap. And behind you stands a generation waiting for your yes. There are people chained to darkness who don't even realize that their freedom is locked inside your obedience, that your voice will trigger their awakening, that your breakthrough will cause theirs, that your decision to keep going is what heaven will use to crack the foundations of long-standing strongholds. This is why your obedience matters, not just for your sake but for theirs. When you obey, things shift. Atmospheres bend, demons scatter, cycles shatter, chains break. Not just in your life, but in the lives of those assigned to your destiny. You're not walking alone. You are a domino in the hand of God. And when you fall in line with heaven's timing, others begin to fall into theirs. It is written in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 19. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. They're waiting. The addicted, the hopeless, the abused, the unseen. They are waiting for a sound that doesn't come from popularity or platform. It comes from heaven. And that sound is in you. That frequency is in your voice. That weight is in your presence. You were born to carry what others weren't willing to touch. You were born to rise where others bowed out. You were built to endure what others couldn't survive. And if you've made it this far, chosen one, it's because you're still carrying it. Hell couldn't kill it. Trauma couldn't bury it. Delay couldn't silence it. You still have your flame, because heaven is still committed to your mission. You are a keeper of holy things, a vessel that carries unseen glory. That's why you can't quit. That's why you can't stay silent. That's why you can't run back to what feels safe. Safety isn't your assignment. Sacrifice is. There are days when it feels like your reward is far away. When you give and no one gives back. When you pour out and feel dry. When you show up faithfully and nothing seems to change. But those are the days where your anointing grows. Because God doesn't build warriors through applause. He builds them through hidden obedience. And even when no one sees it, heaven does. Every unseen, yes. Every can't surrender. Every time you show up when it hurts, heaven records it. God bottles every tear. And none of it is wasted. None of it goes unnoticed in the courts of eternity. You are building something eternal. And that kind of construction doesn't happen overnight. It happens brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice, day by day. But when you look back, you'll realize your obedience wasn't small. It was generational. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for your children, your children's children, and every soul assigned to your light. And when the enemy tried to take you out, he underestimated just how deep your roots were. Because when the wind blew, you didn't break. You bent. You didn't fall. You were fortified. So now, I ask you to share this message, not for popularity, not for numbers, but because someone else is standing where you stood, on the edge of giving up, on the brink of forgetting who they are, and they need this word like you did. So like it, share it, let it multiply, let it be seed in someone else's dry season. Let your obedience now be someone else's confirmation. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, not just to stay connected, but to stay covered. This isn't just content. This is spiritual alignment. It's fuel for the journey, confirmation for the called, and fire for the weary. You are not alone. You never were. You're part of a remnant, and your obedience is unlocking theirs. This is not just another spiritual season. This is the final phase, the moment where everything that's been spoken over your life begins to manifest or fall away. The pressure you feel is not just emotional, mental, or circumstantial. It's prophetic. Something eternal is converging with your reality, and the timeline of heaven is demanding your attention. The war has entered its climax. The enemy isn't just playing defense anymore. He's launching final assaults, strategic attacks, familiar temptations wrapped in new language, exhaustion disguised as rest, distraction masquerading as opportunity. But you were built for this. You were not trained in fire to faint now. You were not preserved through wilderness just to die at the edge of breakthrough. You've come too far. Every battle you've endured until now was training for this final stretch. The season you're in is not casual. It is the tightening of the bow before release, the storm before divine clarity, the silence before the trumpet sounds. The weight is heavier because what you're carrying is about to be born. You've probably asked yourself lately, why now? Why is everything hitting all at once? Because darkness always intensifies before God reveals glory. Because hell panics when it senses your transition is near, and even if you can't see it, your spirit can feel it. The warfare, the weariness, the temptation to give up, these are all contractions, signs that destiny is about to push through. You are not crazy. You are close, and close is dangerous. It's where people quit. It's where they settle. It's where they think, maybe this isn't for me, and walk away with their crown still hanging above their heads. But not you. You're still standing. Even if barely. You're still breathing. Still believing. Even through the tears. That's how heaven knows you're ready. Not because you're perfect, but because you haven't stopped. It is written in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. That's not just a comforting verse, it's a strategy. The enemy wants your fatigue to turn into surrender. He doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you long enough that you forfeit what was already yours. But chosen one, hear this. You cannot afford to sit down in the middle of what you were born to conquer. Your obedience is still building, even when you don't see the results. Heaven operates in layers. Much of what you're building right now is underground, unseen, unnoticed. But that doesn't mean it's ineffective. Roots grow in darkness. Foundations are laid in silence. And those who rush the process always miss the glory of longevity. You are not just called to be a spark. You're called to be a torchbearer. This means that what you're birthing must outlive you. It must carry weight, not just for this generation, but for the next. This is not a sprint. It's a lineage. And you are the pivot point, the one God trusted to carry the final blueprint, to push past the distractions, to break through the weariness, and to finish strong, because how you finish matters. Not how loud you were, not how visible you became, but how faithful you stayed, how consistent you remained, how deeply rooted you stayed, even when the wind tried to uproot you. That's what defines the remnant. Not glamour, but grit. Chosen one. The final phase is where many fall, not because they weren't anointed, but because they grew tired of waiting. But you've been marked with something different. There's a resolve in you now that wasn't there before. A fire that's burned too long to go out now. You've survived too much to start retreating. And the same God who brought you through it is now telling you, push one more time. Everything is closer than you think. What you've been praying for, fighting for, waiting for, it's not on delay. It's moving toward you even now. But the door will only open to those who stay standing when others lie down. To those who walk forward when the crowd turns back. To those who finish their assignment, even when applause fades. And that's you. You're not here by accident. You're here because you were built for this final mission. Every battle, every delay, every dark night, it's all coming together. Stay focused. Stay faithful. The final phase has begun, and heaven is watching to see who endures to the end. You keep asking God for backup, but the truth is, you are the backup. You keep waiting for reinforcements, for someone stronger, more visible, more equipped to show up and shift the atmosphere. But God didn't send someone else, He sent you. You are the response. You are the move. You are the one anointed for the very crisis you keep hoping someone else will handle. You've been waiting for the cavalry, but heaven was waiting for your obedience. This is the reality of being chosen. God doesn't send crowds, He sends carriers. And you are one. You are a carrier of breakthrough, a carrier of light, a carrier of strategies that were formed in heaven's courts and sealed in your spirit. You weren't designed to fit in. You were designed to stand in the gap when no one else would. Chosen one. You have to understand something. You weren't assigned to follow the pattern. You were called to be the pattern breaker. The reason it feels like no one gets you, the reason you feel alone in rooms filled with noise, the reason you've had to walk through things with no blueprint, no guide, and no support, it's because you were never meant to copy anyone else. You are the original, not the echo. You're the pioneer, the first to stand, the first to say, no more, the first to confront what's been allowed for far too long. And that kind of calling carries weight. That's why it's been hard. That's why the pressure has felt personal, because it is personal to hell. The enemy's strategy has never been to fight you head-on. It's to convince you that you're not equipped, that someone else should go instead, that you're too flawed, too uncertain, too broken. But that's a lie, because God specializes in using the least expected for the greatest missions. You've been equipped not in spite of your wounds, but through them. Every scar has made you sharper. Every trial has made you stronger. Every delay has deepened your roots. You don't carry wisdom from books, you carry it from battles survived. It was proclaimed in the book of Esther, chapter 4, verse 14. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? And yes, this is that time. You are the one with fire in your belly and oil in your bones, the one whose presence disturbs cycles, the one who doesn't need validation to move forward. Because when you walk into a place, you're not just bringing yourself, you're bringing everything God has poured into you. You are the one with fire in your belly and oil in your bones, the one whose presence disturbs cycles, the one who doesn't need validation to move forward. Because when you walk into a place, you're not just bringing yourself, you're bringing everything God has poured into you. You carry decades of deliverance in your voice, generational healing in your hands. And everywhere you step, the atmosphere has no choice but to recognize divine authority. You are a move of God wrapped in human skin. So stop waiting for someone else to pick up the mantle that's clearly been assigned to you. Stop hoping for a voice louder, a gift stronger, a leader better equipped. Stop playing small to protect people who were never responsible for your calling. God trusted you with this burden. He trusted you with the weight of a region, a family, a generation. Why? Because he knew you'd carry it well. He knew you wouldn't abandon the mission when it got heavy. He knew that in the silence, you'd still press forward. He knew that even when fear whispered loud, your faith would speak louder. Chosen one. You are not waiting on God, He's waiting on you. The moment you stop second-guessing, everything around you will begin to shift. The moment you say, "Send me," the doors will start unlocking. The moment you walk in the room and realize you are the solution, the warfare will break. The moment you accept that no one else is coming, and you are the one heaven moves. So now, make this moment count. Comment 222 below. Not as a trend, but as a sign, a prophetic act, a declaration in the realm of the Spirit. 2 represents agreement, assignment, and appointed time. When you type it, you are saying, "I agree with heaven. I accept my assignment. I step into my appointed time." 1. You are not too late. You are not underprepared. You are not a backup plan. You are the original strategy. And the world will see what happens when a fully surrendered vessel says yes. 1. This is your confirmation. You are not waiting for someone to arrive. You were sent. You were not made to be an echo. You were created to be a sound that awakens those who've been lulled to sleep by comfort, culture, and compromise. You are heaven's alarm clock, chosen to interrupt the slumber of souls who have settled in silence. Your life, your obedience, your very presence. It's a divine announcement that says, the time is now. Oh, for too long. People have wandered through life asleep, eyes open, but spirits numb, living by routine, but starving for meaning, going through the motions but spiritually disconnected. But when a chosen one steps into alignment, something begins to shift. Clocks start turning in the spirit. Sleep is disturbed. False peace is broken. And what was dormant begins to stir. That's what you do. You don't just inspire, you awaken. Not because of your charisma, but because of your clarity. Not because of your words, but because of your weight. You've carried this burden in silence for too long, wondering why you feel so heavy when others seem carefree. It's because your spirit has been picking up signals from eternity. Even when your mind didn't fully understand them, God built you with an internal alarm that responds to spiritual urgency. While others wait for signs, you feel the shift. While others get distracted, you stay burdened. And while others fall into sleep, you stay alert. That's not anxiety. That's assignment. That's the sound of a spiritual trumpet echoing inside your soul. That's heaven reminding you, you are not here to coast. You are here to call others higher. You were chosen not just to wake up, but to wake others. Your voice doesn't need to be loud. It needs to be yielded. When you speak, something happens. People listen, not because you demand it, but because there's authority behind it. Anointing isn't about volume, it's about alignment. And you, chosen one, are aligned for impact. Think about the moments in your life when you've spoken truth, and everything in the room went still. Think about the times you said something simple, but it cut deep into someone's spirit. That wasn't just your wisdom, that was heaven speaking through you. That was your voice, carrying a frequency that breaks slumber. You've been misunderstood because not everyone is ready to be awakened. Some people love their sleep. Spiritual numbness feels safe. They don't want to be stirred. They don't want to confront the truth. But you were not sent to comfort them, you were sent to call them out of the tomb. Just like Jesus called Lazarus, just like the prophets called nations, just like Paul shook cities, you were built to disrupt the dead things and call them to life. That's why hell fears your voice. It is written in the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 14, "Wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." Now, this is not just a nice verse, it's a prophetic charge. You are the voice in the wilderness, the voice at midnight, the voice that breaks the pattern, the voice that reminds the weary that they still have breath, still have purpose, still have fire. You are not here to whisper people back to sleep, you are here to roar them back to life. Because your roar isn't noise, it's recognition. It's the sound that calls spirits by name, shatters deception, and revives what religion buried. Your roar carries revival, and when you release it, dry bones start to rattle. And you don't need a stage to do it. Some of your greatest awakenings will happen in private conversations, in quiet rooms, in unexpected places, because when you carry the sound of heaven, it doesn't matter where you are, the alarm still rings, the fire still spreads, the truth still cuts through the fog. That's who you are. You've been wondering why it feels like your life won't let you settle down like everyone else. Why every time you try to live normally, something in you resists. It's because your spirit refuses to sleep. God didn't wire you for complacency. He didn't build you for safety. He built you to live on edge, not in fear, but in fire. The time for silence is over. This world doesn't need more passive voices. It needs voices that are anchored and ablaze. It needs voices that disrupt comfort and demand truth. And that's you. You are the call. You are the sound. You are the trumpet in the hands of God, ready to release a frequency that no darkness can ignore. Let the sleepers sleep. But you stay awake, and in doing so, you'll awaken many. Your voice is not welcome everywhere, and that's by design. The moment you truly step into your calling, don't be surprised when opposition intensifies. You will feel the pressure to shrink, to dilute the message, to speak softer, safer, quieter. But you weren't chosen to be quiet. You were chosen to be clear. And clarity in a fog-filled world always provokes resistance. You will be misunderstood. You will be misquoted. You will be mocked. But take comfort in this. They tried to muzzle the prophets before you. They couldn't. The moment your voice begins to carry weight in the spirit realm, the systems of darkness will mobilize against you. You'll feel it in conversations. You'll see it in relationships. People who once embraced you will start to edge away. Not because you changed, but because your light made it impossible for them to hide their shadows. You don't have to say much to cause disruption. Sometimes, just showing up in truth is enough. That's the price of being marked. You carry a presence that forces people to choose. Choose alignment or comfort. Choose light or compromise. And when your life becomes that mirror, don't be surprised when some choose to look away. This is where many fall silent, not because they lack boldness, but because the cost is higher than they expected. But you, chosen one, weren't just called to speak. You were built to endure. The resistance is proof that you're no longer operating in potential, you're operating in impact. It is written in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 11. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. They don't resist you because you're wrong. They resist you because your voice is right. So right. It convicts. Don't take it personally. The darkness isn't reacting to your personality, it's reacting to your presence. What you carry cannot be domesticated, controlled, or manipulated. You don't fit into their systems because you were sent to challenge them. And systems don't break quietly, they scream on the way down. You've already seen it happen. You've spoken truth in love, and it offended. You've stood firm in righteousness, and it triggered insecurity. You've chosen obedience over popularity, and the backlash came fast. That's the reality of walking in the mantle. Not everyone will cheer when you step into it. Some will leave. Some will slander. Some will stay silent. But you weren't called to perform. You were called to proclaim. You weren't created to collect praise. You were commissioned to release truth. And when truth comes out of the mouth of someone who has been refined in fire, it carries an edge no darkness can dull. You're not just making noise, you're carving space in the spirit for God's kingdom to break in. Chosen one. Hear this. Don't let fear of reaction make you mute. You've already fought too much to go quiet now. The enemy doesn't need to kill you if he can convince you to silence yourself. But you were born with a sound. Not everyone will honor it, but those assigned to it will respond to it. And their freedom is linked to your courage. You are not here to be liked. You are here to liberate. When Paul and Silas prayed and sang in the prison, the ground didn't shake just for them. It shook for every other prisoner in the cell. That's what your voice carries. Earthquake authority. Not just for your freedom, but for the people watching you, stuck in cages of their own. When you speak, they begin to shake loose too. That's why the enemy is after your mouth. He wants your voice bound in insecurity. He wants you tangled in the fear of offending. He wants your anointing buried under people-pleasing, because he knows that a fully yielded voice, one that's not afraid to be misunderstood, is a devastating weapon in the kingdom of God. But it's too late. The fire in your bones has already reached your lips. The pressure to stay silent has collided with the power of truth. And the result? A sound that cannot be silenced. Don't muzzle your fire to keep peace with people who were never assigned to walk with you. Let them misunderstand. Let them resist. Let them talk. Because while they debate your calling, you'll be too busy walking in it. And that, chosen one, is the loudest declaration of all. You didn't come this far to fall silent now. You didn't walk through fire, rejection, silence, and seasons of deep pruning just to fade into the background. There is a roar rising in you that was not born in a classroom or a crowd. It was born in the crushing. It came from caves where you cried out to God in isolation. It came from wildernesses where you stayed when no one came looking for you. It came from battles no one saw but heaven did. And now, that roar is ready. Because this battle is not theoretical, it's spiritual war. And whether the world realizes it or not, darkness is moving with strategy. The only thing that can confront it isn't performance, trend, or talent. It's a voice surrendered to the fire of God. A voice like yours. You are not just surviving, you are standing as a declaration. Every breath you take in alignment with God's purpose is a blow to the kingdom of darkness. Every step you make in obedience is a message sent into the spirit realm. I'm still here. I'm still chosen. I'm still dangerous to the gates of hell. This is not about hype. This is not about emotion. This is about clarity and commitment. You're not the same person you were 6 months ago. You're not even the same person you were yesterday. You evolved under pressure. You've transformed in silence. And while the world is still trying to define you based on your past, God has already marked you for your future. That's why the enemy is nervous. That's why the attacks have become surgical, personal, and relentless. Because he sees what you're becoming. He sees that you've stepped beyond inspiration and into execution. And once a chosen one stops waiting for permission and starts moving with conviction, the kingdom of darkness begins to collapse. That's where you are right now. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 1. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. This isn't a suggestion. This is a divine summons. Arise, even if your legs are shaking, even if your voice still trembles, even if you're walking into rooms where no one knows your name. Shine, even if the light exposes others, even if your fire makes people uncomfortable, even if the darkness tries to extinguish it. Why? Because the glory of the Lord is upon you, and when God places his weight on someone, no man can cancel what heaven has decreed. Chosen one. I know this hasn't been easy. You've lost people you thought would walk with you forever. You've outgrown places that once felt like home. You've been stretched beyond what you thought you could handle. But all of it was preparation. All of it was necessary. Because you're not just called to endure, you're called to enforce. You carry authority now. Not just because you believe, but because you endured. And people will notice the difference. Some will be drawn to your light. Others will be repelled. Don't be surprised. Oil attracts the hungry and offends the religious. Your walk won't make sense to the masses. But it was never meant to, because you weren't built for likes, you were built for legacy. But still, your voice needs to be heard. This word you're receiving, you're not the only one who needs it. There are others, just like you, wounded warriors, hidden generals, fire bearers, who are one yes away from stepping into purpose. They're scrolling right now, looking for hope, waiting for a sign, desperate for a reminder that God hasn't forgotten them, and your share could be their answer. So, if this message resonated with your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Like it not for vanity, but because the algorithm responds to movement. Share it not for numbers, but because truth multiplies in motion. Comment below. Let someone know that you're rising too, and they're not alone in this war. Type this in the comments. Yes, I'm ready. End quote. 3 simple words. But in the realm of the spirit, they thunder like a battle cry. You're declaring that you're not just listening, you're responding. That you're not just moved emotionally, you're moved prophetically. That you're not waiting for confirmation anymore, because this is confirmation. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Not just for the next word, but for the ongoing fire, for the consistency, for the sharpening. You are part of something bigger now, a rising remnant, a spiritual army. This isn't just a message. This is a movement. This is heaven calling its warriors to attention. You didn't choose this fight, but you were built for it. So rise, Shine. Declare it. And don't you dare turn back now. You were born to change more than just your own story. This battle you're in, it's not about inconvenience or discomfort. It's not just emotional. It's not even just personal. This battle is generational. It reaches into the past, into everything that tried to form you in dysfunction, and it stretches into the future, toward every soul connected to your name. You're not just enduring, you're interrupting. You are not the victim of this battle. You are heaven's strategy in the midst of it. God looked across your entire bloodline, all the patterns, the cycles, the silence, and said, "This one, this is the one I'll send to break what's never been broken." That's why the pressure is heavy. That's why the warfare is different. Because you are different. And now you're realizing, this isn't just about your breakthrough. It's about the people who will breathe easier because you refuse to break. You've been trusted with the kind of fire that purifies entire atmospheres. The kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books, but from battle. The kind of voice that doesn't echo trends, it births truth. And all of that has come at a cost. But nothing you've suffered will go unused. God wastes nothing, especially not pain. Especially not your pain. Every scar has been turned into strategy. Every delay has become depth. Every no was actually a divine, not yet. Because heaven was still fortifying you. Why? Because the assignment you're carrying, it's heavy with legacy. The prophet Moses, in the book of Exodus, chapter 3, verse 10. "So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." That commission wasn't just historical, it's prophetic. You, too, have been sent. You've been raised up to bring people out of systems, out of bondage, out of spiritual Egypt. You are not just escaping Egypt, you are leading the Exodus. Your hands may still smell like bricks from the burden you carried, but your voice has been anointed to call others forward. You understand bondage not from theory, but from experience. And that's what gives your leadership credibility in the spirit. People will follow your freedom because they watched you fight for it. And they'll trust your direction because they've seen your survival. You are not just escaping Egypt, you are leading the Exodus. Your hands may still smell like bricks from the burden you carried, but your voice has been anointed to call others forward. You understand bondage not from theory, but from experience. And that's what gives your leadership credibility in the spirit. People will follow your freedom because they watched you fight for it. And they'll trust your direction because they've seen your survival. You are becoming what your ancestors prayed for but never saw. You are the manifestation of their cry. And if that sounds too heavy, remember, God knew your shoulders before He placed the mantle. This is not about convenience. This is about completion. Cycles don't break casually. Strongholds don't fall gently. You don't step into generational authority without generational resistance. But the resistance is proof that you've been entrusted with something real. So if it feels like it's taking everything in you just to stay standing, it probably is. And yet here you are, still standing, still burning, still saying, yes. End of 2. That's how God knows He chose right. You are not here to repeat what others endured. You are here to confront it and conquer it. This is your bloodline's pivot point. And you're not here to blend in. You're here to build what lasts. The tears you've cried will become rivers others drink from. The prayers you whispered will become the framework of someone else's miracle. Your yes is birthing freedom. you'll never even see with your eyes, but heaven already sees it. That's what legacy looks like. That's what obedience on this level does. Sonu. This isn't just about getting through. It's about establishing new ground, establishing righteousness where lawlessness ruled, establishing clarity where confusion reigned, establishing glory where generational dust once settled. It's why the battle hit your mind first. Because if the enemy could cloud your vision, he could cloud your mission. But you've endured long enough now to know you don't need to see everything to obey. You just need to follow the voice that never failed you. So keep building, keep showing up, keep carrying what God placed in your spirit, even when it feels too big, because it is too big for you alone, but not for you and the one who sent you. This isn't just your moment. This is your mantle, and you were born for it. You will not exit quietly. You were never meant to leave this earth with your head down, voice silenced, purpose unfulfilled. You were never designed to walk through life apologizing for your fire, negotiating your calling, or muting your mantle. You were built for the storm. And now, the storm fears you. From the beginning, darkness saw what you carried. That's why it came for your voice so early. That's why warfare surrounded your identity before you could even spell your own name. Because hell saw something heaven placed in you, a crown of glory, forged in the flames of surrender. And now, that crown is not distant. It's not metaphorical. It's manifesting. This moment is not about survival. It's about establishment. God is not calling you just to rise. He's calling you to take your seat, to stand in full awareness of who you are, to move in the identity that has been refined through pain, protected by grace, and sealed with divine fire. You are not who you were. The insecure version of you, the one that second-guessed every decision, craved external validation, ran from confrontation, that version died in the wilderness. It was stripped away in the silence. It fell off you when no one was watching. And what emerged from that season was royalty, not arrogance, not entitlement, but anointed authority that came with a cost. And yes, the cost was high. You had to lose to gain. You had to be broken to be rebuilt. You had to walk through betrayal, rejection, misunderstanding, and long seasons of obscurity. You had to learn how to worship when nothing made sense, how to stand when everything around you was falling, how to say yes when your heart was still bleeding. But look at you now, still here, still burning, still chosen. Not because you had it easy, but because you didn't quit when it was hard, because you kept going when silence felt suffocating, because you stayed true when shortcuts whispered lies, because you refused to settle for survival when you were made for dominion. This is not just a personal victory. This is a prophetic emergence. Everything in your past is now being repurposed for impact. The pain, the lessons, the waiting, it's all converging into power. And now you don't just walk into rooms, you shift atmospheres. You don't just pray prayers, you move heaven. You don't just carry light, you command it. You were never called to fit in. You were called to go before. Trailblazer, chain breaker, atmosphere setter. God didn't just preserve you, He has launched you. The gates of hell didn't prevail. The storm didn't sink you. And now the oil is flowing. The crown is descending. And heaven is ready to back your every move. Scripture records in the second book of Samuel, chapter 22. Verse 35. He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. That's the kind of strength you now carry. Not just physical, but spiritual. You've been trained. Not with fanfare, but in the furnace. Not with applause, but in the shadows. You've become a warrior who doesn't flinch at fire, who doesn't faint at delay, who doesn't bow to pressure. And now, God is not just sending you, He is revealing you. This is your revealing season, not for vanity, not for recognition, but for assignment. You've been trusted with revelation that others overlooked, with discernment others mocked, with burdens others called too much. And through it all, you didn't just hold on to the call, you let the call reshape you. That's why you're ready now. This next move isn't about proving anything. It's not about proving your worth, your growth, or your gifting. You've already been proven in the fire, by the Father, under pressure. Now, it's about walking in fullness of identity, fullness of courage, fullness of anointing, fullness of joy. Not the joy that comes from everything going right, but the kind of joy that survives grief, that dances on ashes, that worships in wilderness, that declares, even here, I will not be moved. And you are crowned in fire, and you're being sent with thunder. You are not a whisper, you are a declaration, the kind that terrifies hell and confirms heaven's strategy. Go boldly. Go with scars turned into weapons. Go with clarity, precisión, and a heart that beats in rhythm with eternity. You were built for this. You've been prepared for this. And now, nothing can stop you. Chosen one, take a breath and let this truth settle into your bones. You made it to the end of the message, but you're only standing at the beginning of your next divine assignment. This wasn't just a script. This was a summons, a prophetic activation, a spiritual mirror held up to remind you that your identity has always been greater than your circumstances. You were never just surviving. You were being forged. And now, you are rising not just with revelation, but with responsibility. The crown isn't optional. The call isn't random. The time isn't someday, it's now. You've been stirred, confronted, refined, and confirmed. You've remembered what heaven has known all along. You weren't just chosen, you were built for this final mission. So take your place. Walk in it. Don't delay. And if this message pierced your soul, then don't keep it to yourself. Like this message. Share it. Let someone else find their word, their fire, their confirmation through your obedience. Drop a comment, your testimony, your yes, your raw. Every voice matters. Your response could be the spark someone else is waiting for. And if you haven't already, subscribe to stay aligned with what heaven is releasing. This space isn't just a feed, it's a flow, a divine rhythm for the rising remnant. You felt it. You know it. The hour is late. The mission is clear. And now, you are awake, not to observe, but to execute. We'll see you in the next word. Until then, walk heavy, stay ready, and never forget, you were born for this.